One. We are live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a super special edition of DESIGNathon. I have been so excited for this one. I was excited for the book. I couldn't wait to get it in my hands. And now I am so excited to have Josh Clark here with us. Hi, Josh. Hi, Manaz.
Hello.
Welcome,
Hi.
everybody. Manaz, would you like to say a couple things before we get
Yeah,
into it?
sure. So, hi everyone. I'm back after going through a lot, after getting laid off again. And but I came back stronger and I'll be here from now on. Don't you won't miss me again. I promise. Yeah, we're happy to have Josh Clark here today, one of the authors of Sentient Design. And yeah, hi Josh. Would you like to
Hey,
introduce
Manas.
yourself?
Yeah, welcome back and great to see
Thank
you.
you.
Hey, everybody, I'm Josh Clark. I lead a design agency called Big Medium and been going at it for about 25 years with this agency. And it's really all along the course of its history been about design for what's next, both for organizations and for individual designers. And so what we do as a company is help some of the world's biggest companies figure out how to contend with emerging technology challenges. And we do a lot of product strategy and product invention about, what is needed now for this moment in terms of product, but also in terms of process. And so, 10, 15 years ago, that was all about mobile. And then 10 years ago, it was about design systems. How do we get how do large companies bring design in-house and get everyone moving together? And now I think the thing that is both really exciting and anxious making is, I don't know if you all have heard of it, it's this thing called AI. What do we do with this thing? What does it mean? And what can we do, especially that is meaningful for customers as well as for the business? And that's what Sentient Design is all about. Our new book, I say our because I co-wrote it with Veronica Kindred, who is my colleague at Big Medium, and also my daughter. So it's a generational book in a lot of ways. Veronica sends her regrets. She couldn't make it. She's laid out with a summer cold. She has succumbed at last to the summer cold and wasn't
Yeah,
feeling well enough to join us, but sends her regrets.
yeah, we're
Thank
sorry that we're not able to have her with us. But yeah, we have you, Josh.
I will try to represent, which is, the last thing that a daughter wants to hear that her
Well,
parent is doing.
we'll get a one-on-one with her at a later date because I don't think this topic is going anywhere anytime soon. If anything, I would like to talk about it every day because that I haven't been this excited about new tech as you call it radically adaptive, right? Like that's the area where I'm super excited. But
Yeah.
let's start closer to the beginning. One of the things in the book, you say AI is a design material, not a tool. Can you speak to that distinction a little bit? And keep in mind, our audience is are a lot of designers who are either pivoters or looking for work or early career, um, and just knowing the audience. Can you break that down a little bit because I think that goes against a lot of what they read on LinkedIn, etc. So what do you mean by it's design material, not a tool?
Yeah. I mean, with every emerging technology, the natural thing to do and the phase that we're in right now is to figure out how does this fit into what we already do and what we already make. And sort of the lowest hanging fruit for both application as a practitioner as well as for executives looking for what this technology means is often around productivity and efficiency. And that's what I would say is what we're really looking at in the design community right now when most designers are talking about using AI in design, it is how do I use it to make the designs that I'm already making more efficiently? How do I integrate it with what developers are already doing? So it's like new technology to create the stuff that we're already making, but to find efficiencies there. And the thing and so I think that's a natural place to begin, but it would be a shame if that's the end. because I think that the real opportunity for design and designers is to use this as a material. And so to answer your question, Anne, of what I mean by that, it's using this as the material to make things that weren't possible before. So a design material, we're familiar with it. It's certainly from a physical world, wood is one design material and aluminum is another, and they are good at different things and have different qualities and appeal. How do you use the grain of it to get the best result and avoid that material for other applications? Everything has that, strengths and weaknesses. When graphic designers came to the web back when I was getting started in this racket in the mid 90s, HTML and CSS felt like really foreign and often inadequate design materials. I don't have control. It's flexible. I draw it like this and it doesn't come out like that, or it isn't reliably like that. So HTML and CSS is a design material. But it let us do new things, right? And it let new kinds of people do new kinds of things. So it let us create new kinds of experiences, the web, that we couldn't create in other media. What does that mean for AI? What does it allow us to create when you can weave intelligence into any interface, any interaction paradigm? The result, we think, is that you get intelligent interfaces. So these are websites that can design or assemble themselves, or agents that can appear within the interaction paradigm as just another user driving their own cursor, or experiences that can morph from one channel to another. That Notebook LM example of PDF turning into a podcast, which creates new use cases and a new audience. So all this is to say, it's like, oh, this looks a lot different from the kinds of things that we're creating, and allows interfaces that have the awareness and agency to adapt in the moment to the user. And that can take a variety of different forms that go way beyond text-based chat and text-based agents. And so that's a long ramble, but basically what excites me here is that when we use AI as a design material to make new things, that elevates design. It gives us the opportunity to create new kinds of value and new experiences, whereas using it only for productivity tends to replace design and shrink it and reduce it to a production element instead of what design really can be, which is creators and inventors of enormous value.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
I find myself saying to designers all the time, there's AI in your workflow, and then there's like actual AI products. And
Yes.
there still seems to be a huge disconnect between the two. And one of the things I'm going to be speaking about is I call it the relay between static UI, adaptive UI, voice, chat, and the perfect, and I know it's pie in the sky a little bit, but the perfect the perfect mode based on task, content, context, and cognitive load, right? That's I always so I still think designers are just like, chat's awful. We don't know anything about voice, and not like embrace. Like, to me, I feel like I used to have an 8-pack of Crayola, and now I have this glorious 64-pack of Crayola. I'm not sure everybody will get that reference. I know Josh will. And I don't feel like it's generally being embraced. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, look, let's be honest. It's hard. Oh, it's hard to figure out what is this new stuff for, and it takes some time. And it's also kind of combined with this thing of, wait a second, is this replacing me? Is my job at risk from this? AI can do some things that I've traditionally done. So in addition to just being like, oh, I've got new crayons, it's like, oh, wait a second, are these crayons going to take over the drawing from me? I'm the drawer. And so the challenge and the risk can be really off-putting, especially if you're at a company that is really pursuing that efficiency and reduction mode. So I get why people have anxiety or uncertainty around this. And I think that then a lot of the focus, and there are a lot of reasons for it that we can talk about, that there's like a push to being like, all right, I guess I just have to use AI for production, but not for product. And frankly, that's the only thing that matters, product. It's like, it is why we have the production, to make the thing. All that matters is what do we give to customers and what happens next. Like, that's all that matters. And it's like, oh, we have the opportunity to make that thing better, not just make old stuff with new technique.
One of the go ahead, Manas.
So that's very interesting. But what comes to my mind when I'm listening to you is like, what would the designer's role would be like in this area?
It's a great question, right? It's sort of like, wait a second, if we're creating experiences that are making their own design decisions in the moment, who is doing the design? And I mean, I think that's a big part of like sentient design is the practice of what we call creating these. Sentient design is our name for the practice of creating these intelligent interfaces. And so are we talking about interfaces that are doing the design, or the design of interfaces that are intelligent? And the answer is really both. But it means that the nature of our job changes to being more systems designers than every UI path. And what I mean by that is that we become kind of creative directors of systems to help them make scoped, considered design decisions in the moment. So what that means is like, here's the brief, here's the goal, here are the design patterns or behavior patterns that you may choose based on these different selections. So it's almost like if you could put a junior designer into the screen of every user to make often fairly simple but meaningful in the moment decisions because you can't be there, what instructions would you give to that little embedded junior designer in the system? That's a way to think of it. And so it's, oh, hang on a second. If we're letting, let's take chat for an example, just to give a sense of the expansiveness of things that can happen. With chat, it's open-ended. I can ask anything and the system comes back and gives me a response. Accurate or not, it's something that by that give and take, it's shaping, the user and the system are together shaping the path of this journey in ways that were not designed, right? Like it's totally open-ended. But there are rules to this. This is going to be a text-only exchange. Usually it's like it'll answer some questions, but not others. So there's some shape that's given to it. But that's the role of the designer, is to sort of give the broad shape, the rules of physics to these new universes that we are creating, so that user and system can kind of riff within those rules to create experiences that we could not have designed in static contexts. And that's cool. That's like, whoa, hang on a second. It sounds a little bit heady, but it's like, it really is this thing of like, here's the brief, here's the form of the system, the available interactions, the available UI. Now make decisions based on the context within that scoped universe. It's fun and it's weird. It's hard.
Interesting. And it's a new skill to learn. Like designers need to like pivot into like thinking in systems rather than like thinking like in elements, design elements, or the thing that they used to think of. So that's very interesting point
Yeah.
you mentioned.
You're sort of designing the environment for people and AI to work within, and then you're teaching AI how to work the machinery of that environment. And that can be very wide open, like, whoa, it's like inventing a new interface or application on demand, which you have to be careful with. That can be very unsettling in the wrong context, very ungrounding. Or it can be just slight little interventions in traditional interfaces. It's like, oh, this form field's default downstream later in the form is changing based on what I've put here, so that the answer that's most likely to be correct is not given to me, it's not supplied to me, but it is proposed, like, oh, this is probably what you want. So let me try to reduce that little friction. Just a little, what we call casual intelligence. So it doesn't have to be a robot fever dream. It almost never should be a robot fever dream. There's like sort of
Yeah.
some gaming experiences where that might be helpful. So there's this big spectrum of when we talk about weaving intelligence into the interface from very small interventions to really very wide open ones. And it's up to us as designers to figure out where do we sit in there. That can be really, really hard to figure out. And you were talking about, it's like, oh, we've got all these new crayons, and what do we
Yeah.
draw with it? So why we wrote this book, Sentient Design, is to try to give some order and foundation to how do you approach what is a really wide open world? Like, what can we make? So we've tried to define some vocabulary and a framework to help explore the options and forms that this can take, when to use, when to make what choice for an experience pattern, but also what are the choices? And we're only just getting started, so we don't pretend that this is complete, but we do think it gives a good foundation and grounding into creating these new kinds of experiences.
It's funny when my next question, it was literally just asked in the chat, so it must be the right question to ask. So Armin said, "Yeah, there you go." It was literally the next question out of my mouth. Nice work.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, the question here is like, so let's get down to nuts and bolts. We need a new consumer product. What's the process? What are the steps? And what does AI change? I want to say the good news is for everyone who's like kind of trained in this craft is the foundations are the same. It's not about technology, right? The goal should not be we need an AI product, even though the market often demands one. But that's not the place that we should start as product designers. It is always what is the outcome that we're trying to drive? And that in itself can be hard to figure out, right? It's like it's not just what's the output, what's the artifact that we want to create, but it's like really what is someone trying to achieve as an outcome? What is the behavior that we're trying to shift that wouldn't be here without this? What are we really trying to accomplish? And with any emerging technology, it's worth saying, it's like, oh, how does this let us do this in a new way that wasn't possible before? So here I'm talking about technology again. We're in a strange moment where we have to experiment with the technology and lean into it in ways that are unfamiliar so we can learn what it does. So when I sort of say it's like, let's explore what AI can do, it shouldn't be, oh, AI is always the answer, but we do need to sort of experiment. Where does this let us do things that we couldn't do before? In terms of a practical process, we use something called productive magic as an exercise to think about this. Got to be careful when you talk about magic with technology because there's plenty of magical thinking about what AI can do. What we're talking about with productive magic is a way to get in touch with that essential outcome. If I had a magical amulet, if I had a superpower, what would that look like in this context? And an example that we use in the book is, believe it or not, the rollaway suitcase. For centuries, there were not wheels on suitcases. It was like these were hauled by luggage or on giant carts, hauled by porters or on giant carts. And it wasn't until 1972, that we thought to put a wheel on a suitcase. We put a man on the moon before we put wheels on a suitcase. And the patent application was, this is a suitcase that glides. And of course it doesn't glide, but it's like an example. It's like, I wish that I had a suitcase that could float, that could fly, that could carry itself, that was effortless. That's sort of the outcome that I'm looking for. It's not possible. AI can't do it. We don't have the hover technology yet to make it happen. But we can go back to this idea of like, but we could put wheels on it. And so there's sort of this thing that is helpful. All right, so that sounds a little esoteric. It is helpful when there's a moment of emerging technology to say, let's put a technology aside. What do I wish was possible? And then how can technology get me there? Some approximation of that. Uber had this great ad campaign for like in like 2015, that was like the next best thing to teleportation. And it's just like, right, that is what I want. I want to be able to get there as quickly as possible. That's not possible. But actually having a car that just pulls up and immediately knows where I'm going and the best way to get there is exciting. So all to say, it's like one of the biggest things that you can do is really push yourself to let go of existing solutions and existing assumptions and get in touch with that essential need, which is what the whole purpose of that productive magic is. What do I really want? And then you can begin to say, how does something like AI help to do this in ways that weren't possible before? We have uh, 14 different experience patterns that go beyond things like assistants or tools or broadly agents. To think about it's like, oh, this is the shape of experiences that AI can have right now. And one of the things that we do with our clients is look at that. What is the experience? What is this? How do we get to this outcome with this type of experience versus that type of experience? And part of these things also go into what are our company's underlying capabilities? What can we deliver? What are the constraints? You know, that there's sort of the we don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. How can we adapt what we are already doing now in some cases with this technology and with these experience patterns? So sometimes adding new features, other times adding entire greenfield new products. And then I think the 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 process from there is not about drawing UI immediately, but thinking about how well can AI understand the intent and context of what I'm trying to do in order to make useful decisions. And so a big design change here, like I was talking about earlier, is about behavior design and actually working and talking with the models to understand what kind of context does it need to make decisions in this moment. And decisions, I don't mean I make decisions for the user, although sometimes that can be okay. But really, sort of, what's the right content to put in front of the user? What's the right interaction or design pattern to put in front of the user at this moment to help them get to where they're going? Sorry, everybody. It's like you asked me these big questions and I get into a big ramble. But I
No, we
mean, there is
don't.
sort of like new process steps to exploring what to make before you even get to the making.
And it's
And I
always
think that's the big skill. What can we make now? Like, I think that is the thing. It's like, because when you get beyond tools, then you have to deal with process. How do the tools change our process? So once you sort of metabolize those things, you're able to say, what new things can we create? And that often can open up new business models for a company, and even rarely disrupt entire industries with a new direction. That's obviously a rare case, and not all companies are looking to be disruptive, which is probably a good thing. But there is this opportunity as designers to uncover dramatic new sources of value through the new forms of products that we can create.
so you and I have been around for a bit. So this next question leads directly into that. Um, we've seen decades of hype cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything categorically different this time?
I mean, I think yes, in the sense that there is something that is real earlier. And I'll talk about that in a second. And also, yes, because the hype is unbelievable. And so, you know, and I mean, there's like this kind of thing of like, next year we will have godlike intelligence and these, you know, that is beyond my pay grade. And people who understand the essence of this technology far more than I do disagree about what artificial general intelligence
I
might
hang
look
out
like or
with
when.
them a lot, and yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but it's also like it's also not today, and we don't know when it will be. I think there's a lot of hype about that inflates what's possible and what these systems are good at now, and also a lot about what will be available tomorrow. And I think so that is noisy and hard to contend with. And I think that for the hype cycles of the many last years, a big difference is like, wow, this is elevated to the point of fatigue and distrust. So that's noise to contend with. On the other hand, holy cats, you guys, look what it can do now. I think it's remarkable how quickly maybe we forget how remarkable this technology is, and sort of getting in touch with that initial, wait, whoa, the first time that you saw AI do something that stunned you, that you didn't know machines could just kind of do on the spot, that there's something real here. And I think that a big part of the realness, there's two big pieces that are really important here. I'm probably going to add more than two. Let me start with two. Is the ability to understand content and context and intent is something that has been the white whale of interaction design for forever, since like the 1970s Zork video games, where you would have to like type these 2-word commands to, go north, get stick, like that was sort of the thing. But if you didn't know the exact incantation, you were stuck, right? Like, so the game of like a Zork, a text-based video game back then, half the thing was figuring out how to say the thing. And so you had to be a particular glutton for punishment of casting about in the literal dark to find what to do. Fast forward, Alexa was the same way. If you said switch on the lights instead of turn on the lights stayed off, So it's like, oh, we had this really sophisticated system that could translate language into text, but wouldn't know what to do with it then. Suddenly we've got language models that can understand the context, certainly in text, but also you can feed it other types of context, of image or speech or video or structured data, and it gets what the context is of sort of, and often what the intent is. So that's a big thing. It's like, whoa, wait, I can kind of, a flexible ability, an open-ended ability to understand what's happening. And an ability to sort of like communicate in a flexible thing, in a flexible manner. And I don't just mean tone and style, which large language models can obviously do. They can sort of take on whatever role you want them to take on or play act that role. But I also just mean it's like, oh, this ability to go from text into speech, into video, into image, different formats. It's all just symbol manipulation, right? It's like, this image means dog. This Japanese symbol means dog. This word means dog. So does puppy. Like all of these sort of things. It's all just symbol manipulation, which means that they can understand what you want and come back in the format that's appropriate. The trouble in between is facts. They're tricky and sketchy with facts, right? But they're really good at talking to systems that have the facts. And so what you can get is what that adds up to. Like, I'm not saying anything new about large language models here, except to point out, oh, that makes them exceptional at the presentation layer. Really open-ended input and really open-ended output within whatever constraints that you've got, and the ability to kind of get the actual facts from a trusted system. That you have this MC, that's a shape-shifting MC that can present information and interaction to you. That is really new, and it works. I know it works because at Big Medium, we do this with clients in high stakes, highly regulated environments and still make it go, in healthcare, in finance, in law enforcement. It's like, whoa, you can't screw around here. This is like stuff that you can't mess with. But you can like have these really compelling new experiences that make the user's life easier and meaningful and create new value. So yeah, there's something new here, and it affects our craft.
Awesome. So I just wanted to mention for our audience that they can get the book Sentient Design from rosenfeldmedia.com. And for our audience specifically, we get this discount code, Sentienthathon, to get 20% off. I put that in the comments so you can get the link to get the book, and don't forget to use the discount code to get the 20% off specifically for our audience. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Manaz. We thought we were being so cute with the Sentient-a-thon thing, like riffing on DESIGNathon, but it's like impossible to say. But yeah, It's like designathon, but replace design with sentient, and you get sentientathon. I don't know. If
Sentient
you all want a
thought.
new podcast,
I'm
you can
trying
have
to
that name. You can have that for free.
yeah. After Swarmathon, then Designathon, and then Sentientathon. Yeah.
Whew,
Gosh,
it's a
I need to
mouthful.
see my copy between the highlighter, the notes, me cheerleading. Yes, yes, yes. Like my copy looks like it's been through the ringer already. But let me reel us in a little, because I can tell
Yeah,
in the chat that I think what a lot of designers want to know is, when it comes to new skills, when it comes to cutting through the noise, what should we be paying attention to in regards to learning and upskilling? And what are the things? I think one of the people say AI accelerates execution, strategy still decides what's to build. I think what's never going away, and what should designers who are worried about getting hired be learning?
yeah. I mean, it's a great question. It's an important moment to be asking this for design, not just for AI. I mean, I think I mentioned, like design systems came around a decade ago as large companies were metabolizing design, bringing it in-house from agencies. And so a lot of the work there was, how do we fit something as messy as design into a process that large companies can run and organize? And for the most part, this is where most designers work now, is in larger companies, larger organizations. Used to be smaller agencies. So where we work changes, and the expectations of that changed. And I think there was an unintentional effect that happened to design and designers as that process happened, which that it became much more of a production role, of sort of like, all right, how does design fit into the giant cogs of this software factory that we are creating here? And for better or worse, some things around design systems encourage that. It's like, oh, all right, we're becoming people who assemble designs from fixed pieces. And I think that a lot of your listeners will be like, that's not what design is all about. But I think that that is something that became a bit of an assumption, and in some places a truth, that that was the role of design in places. That is at risk from AI, because AI can do a lot of that assembly work. And in fact, that's a big part of sentient design. Is like, how do we design that experience to do that sort of assembly live for the user? And how do we as designers make the decisions to teach AI to do those things in real time? So I want to acknowledge that this is not all good news, that there are a lot of production tasks that AI will take care of. And we as designers need to have the skills to understand how to execute good design with AI tools. Like, I think that is just a norm. And we need to be clever about what that means for collaborating with other disciplines now that they too have access to those tools. So those first phases that I mentioned earlier of tooling and process, we have to have a command of that stuff, because that's just sort of like maintaining our position and standing in the organization as it is. So we've got to have those things. Be familiar with AI, use it, understand the tools, understand that it forces new ways to work with product and with development. Got to change. Organizations have to change. The big opportunity here is to get in touch with the opportunity for invention. And I think that design as an industry is rusty about this. We haven't had to do it since mobile came around 15 years ago. Organizations moved those decisions into product, where it was much more about maintaining and building and extending established product, much more than inventing new forms. And friends, that is the thing that is going to be the big new driver of design going forward, is getting in touch with what are the valuable, meaningful new ways to meet user and business outcomes that we couldn't do before, and that the creativity and the empathy And the systems thinking that designers can bring to this uniquely as a discipline can help to shape that future. But we're on our back foot right now because we're understood as a production capability that often doesn't have those decision makings with product. So I would say another big piece of this is like, how do we stay true to our values and skills as designers while also understanding the incentives of product and business so that we can say, here are the interests of the user and we understand the interests of the business. They don't have to be at odds. How do we find that narrow, hard to find path that connects those needs and light it as brightly as we can and show that we have a new design material to light that path in new ways? This is all a little bit abstract in terms of like, what are the tools that we need? What are the skills that we need? What are the processes? But that's the big picture. That's the goal that we need to embrace for design as an industry, as well as designers. Get back to it, friends. We can like really start to invent new experiences that are meaningful, not just because we can do it, but because we should, that it's the best solution for both business and customer. And that's exciting and hard, and we don't always have the permission to put it out there in the current environment.
I tell people all the time too, like traditional UI designers get really mad at me a lot. But it's okay because I'm trying to tough love them in a way of leading them down to a healthy path of having, meaningful work. Learn some basics of conversation design. I conversation design, like I see people posting about agentics and context and like these things like they're new, and I'm like, this is conversation design on steroids. Like it's the same things we've been saying for years, but it's kind of repackaged and new in a lot of areas. And I just think the mindset of a conversation designer is systems thinking and in general. And if you're trying to understand what does systems thinking mean, how do I change my mindset? I think 1 or 2 free classes on conversation design might flip that switch and help understand orchestration and relationships between things that you didn't used to have to think about, like just dabble until you find the thing that kind of flips the switch for you. One of the questions though, and it's funny because it's something I teach in conversation design, is conversation design for a small business versus enterprise is very different. Less regulations, more, less battle with marketing, less battle with the business team. Like it's different. And one of the questions is, should what we learn depend on if we're at an enterprise org or a startup or looking for a role?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, I would say the essential foundations are similar across all this in terms of like, what do we want to accomplish for users and for business? I will say that, small companies versus large companies, it's a really different kind of work. In both, you're likely to be working in small teams, but in larger organizations, you are dealing with the size and the politics of these things, that enterprise organizations can be powerful, but their size also magnifies their dysfunction. And so things move more slowly. Decisions are less clear and centralized. You're dealing with committees or committees of committees of committees, and it can be hard to sort of like make decisions. In both cases, making the thing, demonstrating the thing often breaks those barriers. That I think that this is especially true in large organizations, but in any group of people, that we will argue and disagree about things in the abstract until we actually see the thing. And the best thing that you can do as a designer is to, as quickly as you can, make the thing to demonstrate the idea. This is the original idea of MVPs before the thing kind of lost its meaning, is what is the smallest possible thing that we can create to decide whether or not we're on the right path? It's like, instead of arguing about it, we have the tools right now that we can make a prototype to just see how does this work? Let's try it out and see if this idea is a good one or not, and then it will tell us what to do next. And so, I mean, I think that one of the big skills that you can learn right now is how to, either on your own or even better in collaboration with small sort of groups, is to show your idea as quickly as you can. We're not limited to drawing rectangles in Figma anymore. At the same time, you can spin up working prototypes that test whether your idea is right. So I think that that's like a big thing that is a really important aspect of sentient design, but I think of all design, is how can we quickly get to a thing that will help everybody involved get to an idea faster. And I think that all organizations value speed to one degree or another, sometimes at the expense of quality. But I think that we have the opportunity to have both, to have good ideas rendered quickly. But we still have to do that work of coming up with the good idea.
Yeah, I also agree that like the core idea is like becoming more important than the how fast we can do it, because like we have like the speed right now, but we don't have like the thinking and the idea behind that.
Yeah,
Like, and the rush that we can right now make things happen very quickly would like make it less happen, because like people's like just getting like uh rush to things without thinking about the context, about the reasoning, about everything that would support that. So
yeah,
yeah, that was
yeah.
very interesting point, Raj.
Well, I mean, I think the classic of product design, what used to be good, fast, or cheap, pick two. But if fast
Yeah.
or cheap are just commodities that everyone can do, then good is the only thing that matters. And so how do we get to good? And that's like a return to like good design practices. I think a risk too of sort of everybody being able to do their own thing is that we get a million armies of one, which can be really exciting if you are in fact a team of one. You are trying to get your own idea or venture off the ground. But when you work with other people, there's a tendency to think like, haha, as a designer, I don't need product or development anymore. You know, I can just make the thing. By the way, as designers, we're the only sort of like discipline who needs permission from someone else traditionally to make the thing. Product has always been in control. Developers can just make it. Designers, we've just been sort of describing it and drawing pictures of it for a long time, but we needed someone else. So there's something empowering. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, being like, oh, I can make a thing to actually demonstrate it quickly to find out if this is a good idea or not. We can settle this conversation. But there's a risk. You see this in a product. We don't need design or development. Developers, I don't need product or design. Like everybody thinks they don't need each other anymore. There's a reason these disciplines exist beyond just production, and it's viewpoint and perspective. Product understands the business goals of the thing and often the customer goals better than other people. Designers understand experience better than the others. Developers understand how to make this thing resilient and sturdy and lasting and maintainable. You can't do it without each other. You know, the opportunity is that we can work closer together faster, but there's a real risk. And that takes new skill too, because I think we're used to, I'll do my work and pass it over to you. As much as people say that they're agile and not waterfall, it's never true. But with this, we can all work in the same space and in tighter iterative cycles, and it's exciting.
So what do
Oh,
you
yeah,
think with the like,
yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just something that Anne said made me think too about learn conversation skills. I think one of the opportunities here is that there are new types of interaction that are opportunities. And no one of them is going to replace what we know other. These are all going to be additive. These are all new options that we can have. But there are new patterns emerging in conversation design. There's practice, and there are behavioral design patterns that are important to know and understand. And that's like one of the things I know we've been talking sort of at the high level, but this book, Sentient Design, has, you know, a ton of UI and interaction patterns and functional patterns that are like, here are the forms that we can take and what makes them work and when to use what and what their drawbacks are. So a lot of the things that we've been assuming are best practices in the traditional web world, for example, or even in apps, and it took a while for those to settle for like mobile apps, need to be revisited, certainly extended. And I think one of the jobs right now is to get fluency and literacy in this broader expanse of interaction patterns that are now possible for all of us. And so, and I think that your advocacy of conversation design is super important right now. I think that, agents, people are like, oh, agents, we don't need UI anymore. There's a whole discipline that is going to need to grow up about how do you manage agents so that they don't just drag you down and wear you out.
So that's like take me to the next question that I wanted to ask you. Could you give us like a tangible example, uh, either from the book or one you want to mention about like how exactly this sentient design works?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that would be.
Yeah, you bet. So as I mentioned, we've got, just broadly, what we've identified as sort of four broad postures of sentient design experiences. And I'll give you a hardcore example of this, but just for context, there's things that are like tools, which are really traditional transactional experiences. Here's an input, here's an output. I don't know, Midjourney is a tool. I'd like an image of this. Here's your image. So it's like a traditional, very controlled experience. Chat is another posture. And what I mean by posture is the relationship that the system takes with the user. So it's like tools are controlled. I give you an order, it comes back. Chat is a turn-based exchange with a peer. Here, I did something or I said something. Chat doesn't have to be dialogue. It could be more conversational. I take an action and the UI rearranges itself in response. I take another action, the UI rearranges. And the way and the path of it is conversational. It's like it creates a path between user and system that wasn't defined by the designers in advance. Both of those need managing. Tools and agents, you got to manage those. Agents, you just say what your goal is and it goes off, makes a plan, executes it, decides when it's done, and comes back with the thing. So in minutes or days, the thing just comes back kind of invisibly. And then there's something that we call co-pilots, which is more of an ambient presence that is standing by to help when you can. So this is like a long legacy of spell checkers from back in the day, right? They're just quietly working in the background. Oh, let me just underline that little error so that you can, it doesn't interrupt, but it's just kind of there supporting you throughout. Very different postures and interaction models. So within those, we have 14 different things that can often be blended. Okay, whew. So one of those experience patterns is what we call bespoke UI. Some people call it generative UI, which I find a little bit of an overly broad term for this specific use case. But it's a dashboard that assembles itself in the moment. That it's like, great, I have this specific challenge. Here's the data and the proper visualizations for those that meet that specific task. SaaS systems, enterprise systems have tons of these. Usually the dashboards have been manually created and now you have 500 screens that you need to find in this nest of navigation. The idea here is like just ask for what you need and the proper thing manifests, a bespoke UI where it's got a fixed set of design system components that you give it some rules and hints based on context of which ones to choose. Where do you get the right data? So the answers aren't coming from AI, the presentation is based on a scoped design system and set of sources. So that's bespoke UI. There's also things like an intelligent canvas, which is here's a canvas of things that I want to just draw something on it and perhaps an app will manifest in it. TL Draw is a canvas-based app or a platform for creating canvases. And early on, so shortly after large language models, they created something called Make It Real, where you could, excuse me, draw a picture of a piano. And it would be like, and then you would click Make It Real, and it would turn it into an app that let you play a piano. Or, draw a book and put a little note, like make this page flippable. And then it would be like, oh, it's a book that turns the page. So the canvas itself understood intent and transformed the thing into an action. And there's all kinds of different intelligent canvases, and you can find them even in mainstream products. Like the iPad calculator has this feature called Math Notes that you can kind of go into and essentially draw and scrawl your notes in math. And it's really spreadsheet stuff underneath that you're kind of creating variables. You can kind of name them x equals 3, and then you can write a formula 3x equals 9, and whatever. It will sort of like do it, or 3x equals y, and it's like now it knows, great, in this case y equals, oh boy, 9, I guess. Anyway, now I'm getting myself confused talking through this. But it's this thing that's like, it's spreadsheet functionality, but eliminates the grid. Draw your own interface based on this engine for what you need in the moment. So that's an interface canvas where the intelligence is now sitting on top of a deterministic system, but the user can craft and shape whatever interface they need in the moment. So a lot of this shift starts to be manifesting experiences. We used to have to search for them, or they were curated, or they were automated for us. Now we can manifest them.
That's interesting. Once a CEO of a company told me, I was working as a designer, and he told me that like I need a canvas to like show you what I have in mind so you can design it for me. And I said, like, we don't have this. Like, you can either like use a pen and paper to show it to me, or like, no, I need a canvas, a digital canvas, so I can do whatever I want. I don't want this Figma with this limitations that it gives me. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Well,
interesting. Like
and
right
you
now,
can,
it's going this way.
I mean, it's fascinating. It's like, and Figma is obviously trying to move in that direction. They have agents on the canvas now. This idea of like, how do we, this comes back to this idea of we have all these interaction paradigms. What happens if we weave intelligence into it? What if the canvas I was drawing on in Figma was intelligent, or I could ask it to finish the job once I've started it? Like that's where things are heading. And I think it becomes really interesting then when you sort of introduce AI as a kind of character in this, is what we call the non-player character pattern, where like in a multiplayer environment, what if there's a cursor that's coming into Figma? Miro, the whiteboard intelligent canvas, has this feature in called sidekicks, where you can ask it to do something and then the cursor flies in and it's doing stuff on your behalf like another user. Um, and I think that that's useful because a lot of times we think, oh, it's like to have AI, we have to have a chat sidebar. Or, oh, we have to go over here and talk to Claude or Chat GPT off to the side and then cut and paste the results into my real application. What if instead of editing that way off to the side, we cooked it into our word processors? We already have paradigms for collaborators and editors to edit and mark up our documents, and yet we haven't brought that into AI. What if AI can just add comments and make suggestions that I can accept? So I think a lot of the opportunity is, instead of thinking of bolting AI on literally with a sidebar or having to go someplace else for it, how can I bring it into the core interaction experience? Which I think is this intelligent canvas pattern is super interesting, because it's like, oh, I draw it in the canvas and it changes there in the canvas. But there's all kinds of different interfaces and experiences that we create, and you can blend them. So at last, an example from our own work is we're working with a company called VIA, whose specialty is really around wrangling messy data and making it super secure. So a lot of government agencies use this, financial firms. What they didn't have was like a great way to explore that information. So what we did is we kind of created a canvas where you could write your question on the canvas. I would like this kind of information. And then it takes that, and in this intelligent canvas pattern, blooms a data visualization around that prompt on the canvas. And it's choosing which visualization, which is a bit of bespoke UI. It's got a repertoire of patterns that it can use to choose from a design system. And it chooses which one and brings in the right data and shows it. And then you can ask questions about that. So it's sort of conversational, but it spreads out on the canvas and shows your path of logic and the AI's path of logic and where it came from this information. So you're visualizing this journey of data exploration. And then you can ask an agent to come in and do some familiar research task. And it will come in and it's now drawing on the canvas, driving its own cursor to do either complex tasks or maybe really rote tasks. Is a thing that I have to fill out this paperwork 500 times, so go and do the information. But at the end of it, you have this audit trail of where all the information came from, the queries and responses and visualizations that show you the track of this journey in a way that makes data a visual journey and exploration instead of a wall of text that so many chat experiences turn into. So that's what I mean. It's sort of like these are brand new experiences, but using inspiration from familiar paradigms that we already know, but they become something new when you weave that intelligence into it. And that's what I mean by a design material. It's like, oh, what if we could make the interface itself at the point of interaction make design decisions to support the user? Thanks. Y'all have got me on a rambly mood. Sorry, I know I'm going on and on here.
Teaching, which brings me to two things. One, for years we've been saying our industry needs like a standardized lexicon, vocabulary. I think the book should be the guiding force for that. And the other thing is, we need it. And now we need it more than ever. And you are literally naming the things as they're materializing into the world. And I think we just need some kind of guild that says, yes, this is what this means. Because you ask one person what taste means, 10 people, you get quite a few different definitions. But the other thing is too, I would really love to do, like people do book clubs and each week they talk about a different book. I'd love to do like a 4-week book club where we go in and learn the lessons that the book teaches, because I still think people are still unclear, running scared. The job market, leadership doesn't know what they want or need. So how are we supposed to know what to learn and do? So I feel like my presence on LinkedIn is to try and ease people's pain in this area. I should probably talk to my therapist about that, but really, we're usher, like, in 100 years from now, they'll talk about this period of time in a way where it was like, oh, it was messy, there was upheaval, and how can we usher designers into this new stage of design and not have it be so painful? And yet people just need to feed their families and pay their rent. So it's two things. It's so many things. It's the fear, it's the discomfort, it's the upskilling, it's the job market, it's leadership, it's all these things. And we're almost at time. So in 3 minutes, if you're going to guide everybody who's listening down a path, where would you take them?
Yeah. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but I would suggest that you take a look at the Sentient Design book, because like you said, it's like we wrote it because we needed it. We were early on in creating a lot of these intelligent interfaces that have become there. And it's like, wait a second, there's a lot of possibility here. How do we have some common language around here? What are we seeing out there? We weren't the only ones doing this, but it was haphazard. People weren't doing it in the same way or calling things by the same name. And it was scary. It was ungrounding. It was anxious making, because it was just like you're sort of like swimming in this stew of possibility. And so what we did is we just started mapping. It's like, here's what we're seeing out there. Oh, here are the themes that are coming together. And a big part of this, right, that's really hard is like, oh, the capabilities keep changing every day. The models can do something new that they couldn't do before. And so we wanted to do a little bit of slow thinking with it to identify, what are these postures? What are these experience patterns? What are the best practices? Where are the trouble spots, the things that don't work that we got into trouble on and we see other people get into trouble on? Naming the territory. There's a lot of mapping and naming here. And what I found and what Veronica found from writing this book is that it gave us a real sense of relief, not only for discovering the possibility and value that design could create in this, but in realizing, you know what, there are some things that we can hang our hat on here that are solid and stabilizing in this tricky environment to start to name what our practice is. So
Got even more
I don't know.
excited to read it now.
I take a look at it because I think it's like there's a lot to do in terms of the tooling and the process, as I said, but in terms of having credibility and authority with what we make next, this was really an effort to put names to it and to give you the vocabulary to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So don't forget to use the code Sentientathon to get 20% off on rosenfeldmedia.com. I put the link, use the link in the comments, both on YouTube and LinkedIn to get there and get your version, get your copy of the book. Yeah.
Awesome. Before we go, I just want to plant a seed. At the end of July, I will be doing a talk on what I think the new design stack will be with Rosenfeld. Thanks to Josh. I'm very excited about kind of unleashing everything that I've learned in the last 4 years and the way I've predicting it's going to be stacked and look like down the road. I love playing fortune teller, so I'm excited for that. And Josh, I mean, I can't say thank you enough for the book, for coming today, for the standardized lexicon I hope we all embrace, and just everything. I'm just enamored.
Oh, and thank you so
so
much. That
much,
means a
Jeff.
lot. Manaz, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to see you both.
Thanks,
Thank
Josh.
you so much.
Do you want to
Have a
plug
good
anything
one, everyone. Yeah.
real quick, Josh?
In addition to the book, you can find a lot of our writings at bigmedium.com. Big Medium is like the two sizes, bigmedium.com. We also have an email newsletter that is all too occasional, so we won't flood your inbox.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Josh. Thanks, Manaz. This was a great one.
Thank
I hope
you,
everybody has a little clarity. If not, keep an eye out. I'm going to try and talk Josh into doing a book club.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.